Welcome to Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave here on KLDR Online Leadership Development Radio. Today we are pleased to announce our special guest is Diane Bogino, and I'm going to get you to go ahead and start and give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and your business to our listeners and just a bit about your background. So welcome, Diane.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dave. I'm happy to see you again. I like to tell people I started my career on stage. And I learned a lot about people because of the characters I had to analyze. And then I got into HR, and HR and show business are a lot alike because you're always on, I like to say. So I started my own business about 17 years ago, and you and I do something similar, human development, and get people to really know themselves so that they can realize their full potential. And I really enjoy it. We work with assessments and we do team building, and I help people build better careers, because if you don't help people build a better career before they get to that executive suite, it's too late.
Amen to that. Good deal. Good deal. So it's funny you said that. I want to piggyback on something you said. You're like, HR and the stage, HR and theater, HR and acting are a lot alike. So I know I get the fact that you're always on. So I certainly understand and sympathize with that, but go a little bit deeper into that. I think that's got some depth to it that you might have skimmed over just a bit.
Well, whenever I had a play to do, you of course play a character. You really, or I did at least, really delved into that character. I would write pages and pages and pages about this character. And that's what started getting me fascinated about the human behavior and about how people think and act and why they do the things they do. You know, why are they motivated to do certain things? It's the same thing in HR. If you don't understand people and why they do things, and if they're a good fit for a job or not, you're in for a disaster.
I would definitely agree with that, especially with the good fit for the job. That is, I've seen a whole lot where there's an executive leadership position that you're like, wait a minute, 6-9 months down the road, or maybe even 3 months down the road, you realize that this is not the person we need for this job. But then what ends up happening is with an executive leadership position, like, yeah, but you know what? For anybody a director and above, we're going to give them 2 years, right? We're just going to give them 2 years. So those poor guys working underneath them, the managers, the supervisors, the staff, you know, even the directors, if it's a VP, we give all of our leadership, 2 years. You realize 6 months in, this cat ain't cutting it, right? And then all of a sudden now you're just shooting your employee engagement scores in the foot, because now I'm going to have to deal with 18 months of this guy. So he hits his 2-year mark before they start critically looking at him saying, or her saying, okay, now, yes, they've been underperforming for 2 years. We've given them a chance. Maybe we'll.
Yeah. A lot of times, though, people will, they promote people because they're doing a good job. So they make them a manager, but it doesn't make them a manager because they're doing a good job. And it certainly doesn't make them a leader. So they set them up for failure. They've got to give them the training. They've got to help them learn the things they need to learn in order to be a leader.
Absolutely. I talk about in one of the presentations about building a leadership culture is the fact that and I love what you're talking about, that, yeah, it's the stereotypical, we take our best salesperson and make them the sales manager, right?
Right.
And then
exactly.
It's like, oh, for God's sake, come on. And then they don't want to be in that position. And they go back to try to do what they do best with selling, but they need to be out managing the salespeople. That's right. You know, it's one of the things is, obviously you talked about giving them the training to do it. You've got it. I mean, it's a whole new skill set.
Absolutely.
And honestly, you talk about for people, beat up on the manager, manager versus leader, but honestly, management, and I think it was back in the day, industrial, early 1900s or whatever. I'm the exact researcher who coined this slips my mind, although I guarantee I have it in one of those books back there. Guaranteed. Yeah, they talked about the management skill set was like Positive Corp. It was planning and organizing and developing and budgeting and all these types of things. And you could be a great leader. Like, I can see the vision and I can get the vision across to people, and you'd be a horrible manager, right? I can't plan, I can't organize, I can't schedule, I can't budget. None of that. Right? That's not for me, right? So, but so that it's still a needed skill set.
Absolutely.
But people have stereotyped, and it's true. They've got into the whole like, all right, I'm just going to be the boss, not the leader, and it just really creates a horrible environment. But if you don't train people to do it, you're short staffing, you're short selling them, and also if you got to give them opportunities to be able to, I feel, practice it. I mean, if you teach someone to do it and then you never give them a chance to practice, and then all of a sudden you throw them in the deep end of the pool, you haven't done them any good either. And well, we gave them the training. I don't understand why. Why they're not performing, because they never got a chance to practice it beforehand.
That's right. That's right.
Just a thought. I mean, it's funny. Years ago, I joined the fire department and had no intentions of ever joining the fire department, but I was working as a medic in this one city, and fire department was trying to take over, and I was like, I don't want to be without a job. I had this horrible addiction that I'm ashamed of, right? I got totally addicted to a roof over my head and 3 squares a day, right? It was like crack. I couldn't give it up no matter what I did. It was just this awful addiction, right? So I'm like, I'm pretty keen on this like dry place to, roof over the head, 3 squares thing. So I bailed and went over there, and I was like, there's no way. I have no desire to run a burning building, but I do have a desire to pay the bills, right? So, and I like working here and the people, so whatever. It's funny, about halfway through rookie school, point being, you train someone to do the job and don't let them actually do it. But halfway through rookie school, we're like, okay, we don't go to a burn building or a training facility or somewhere where we can put these skills that you've been teaching us to use. We're going to burn this building down and practice putting it out, right? You understand? Like, we want to get in and actually do some of this stuff that you keep telling us about. And that's no different than managers and leaders. You got to train them. But the problem is, half the time, they don't even get the training part. They just get thrown in and, hey, figure out, go put the fire out, and we're going to give you food or some water or nothing. Just figure it out.
Yeah, but there's many of those things they can do before they ever get to leadership as well. So that's the thing. It's called delegate.
Yes, and what it does is, the way I've framed it in a couple of my presentations is you're building depth on the bench. I love the guys and gals that are so micromanaging. That's probably not a word, but it sounded good.
It is now.
It is now. They had to throw them like, if I teach you how to do my job, then you're going to take my job and I'm going to be out of a job. The funny part about that is when it bites them in the butt, when that director who will not train some of his managers or her managers to take his position or her position, then all of a sudden, unexpectedly, this VP job comes up that, oh my God, I've always wanted. I'd love to promote you, but you don't have anybody that can take your spot, and you're critical in the organization. Right. So we're going to have to look at somebody else to take this VP spot.
That's right. That's exactly right. Happens all the time.
It does. But if you have depth on the bench, you can grow, expand, scale, because you've got leaders that you can, and it does. You said it. You got to delegate. You train them, and then you delegate certain tasks and let them fail. I mean, if they screw up, you don't give them something that's going to bankrupt the company, but something that they can practice using these skills. So when they get to that spot, it's not. They're pretty comfortable. Yeah, it's second nature at that point. Right. They can take it over and be good to go. So that's funny about kind of getting into that. But it's when you talk about dialing in that job. The other part is when you have matching people for the job, is when you have a lot of churn and a lot of turnover in these frontline positions. And yeah, that's
not good. It's expensive. And it's demoralizing. The morale goes right down the tubes. Yes.
Yep. Well, I laugh. If you look at it from a behavioral point of view, I pick on a buddy of mine that runs a manufacturing plant here. I said, well, you can't take a whole bunch of people that are high eyes, people, right? I've always got to be around people, and everybody's my best friend. I just haven't met them yet. Those kind of people that just have to be around people, and hire them for 20, 25, $30 an hour in a manufacturing plant, putting plastic bottles into a paper cardboard box with no human interaction, right?
No.
Give them 3 weeks, and either they're going to get written up for being at the water fountain way too often, or B, they're going to be like, I'm out, boss. I got to go.
Right.
And then they're gone. And then you wonder, well, why do we have all this turnover? Because you're not putting the people with the right behaviors and skills and temperaments into that match the job that you're asking them to do.
You're not doing the work ahead of time.
Shock. Do I have a pulse? Do I have do I fog a mirror? You're hired.
You're right. Enough of that.
Well, and it's funny. I maybe talk about it for a second. Coming from an HR background, how many times do we put negative incentives? Okay, so we incentivize the HR people that you need butts and seats. You need to hire people. You're on recruitment. You need to recruit, hire people.
Yeah, but people should be recruiting all the time, which they don't do.
Right,
So
but then the turnover.
right.
But you're saying if you don't get a volume of people, but you're not incentivizing getting the right people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You get what you reward. But the thing is, if you do this continually, and like you say, build that bench, you're going to have a lot internally, but you're also going to be able to do the work ahead of time that you need to do. When everybody's recruiting, they say, oh, I know the perfect person. So they don't get in a bind, and they can bring somebody in rather quickly that way.
Right. And so when it comes down to, you might, if you do something, you were talking about using assessments in your business, if you use some kind of assessment based to kind of match the right people to the right job, you may find fewer butts to put in the seats, but they're the right butts to put in the seats.
That's right.
And so that way and it's far less turnover. Yeah, you might be slower to hire, but they're more likely to go and to stay.
Absolutely.
And in the long run, so as I say, if you look at the big picture long run, you're better off saying, hey, here are the right tools you need, Mr. and Miss HR person, to get the right people that we need so they'll stay, versus, the rewards for them, and they're going to do what's rewarded, is hire the volume of people we need. Problem is with the turnover, you end up, as expensive as it is, as you mentioned, that's really tough.
Yeah.
Really tough to keep paying.
Yeah.
So I did another question for this particular segment. What does leadership mean to you? And more importantly, what does good leadership look like?
Leadership is guiding people, to me, and helping them develop to their fullest. And a good leader has it, not IT, but E.I.T. They have empathy, they have integrity, and they have transparency.
I like it.
Yes.
They have it.
Yes.
That's cool. I like it. At first, we started not IT. I'm thinking, okay, what, they don't have computer skills or what? I mean, they can't read their email, but empathy, transparency, and integrity.
Right, exactly.
I like it. Oh, that is cool. So,
You can steal that, Dave.
I will. I probably will. Yes. Give credit, right? I mean, you learn in a PhD program. We got to cite your sources, right?
That's right.
But one of the things you talk about lead is kind of showing people, and the thing that I picked up out of what you just said, it's almost the leadership being almost like a tour guide versus a travel agent.
Right. or a Sherpa maybe, because it's like John Maxwell says, if you're going up the mountain and there's nobody following you, you're not
You're just going for a hike. Yeah, just going for a walk. Yeah.
You're not guiding anyone. But just as you said earlier, helping people develop all the time, that's what a good leader does. A good leader can't be jealous. They can't deny people getting ahead. That is not leadership. That is not integrity at all. So to your point, you've got to be able to be willing to develop others and let them shine. Give them the credit. Yes.
Well, that's why I laugh about the whole kind of manager leader thing. I kind of look at it, if you're going to break it up into the manager bad, leader good, kind of dichotomy, and take the skill set part out of it. You could probably make a good case that the manager is more like the travel agent, right? You go to AAA when AAA was a thing, get your trip tick, and they'll say, hey, go here, go here, go here, hand you the stuff, have a nice trip, right? See you later, bye. Go forth and have fun. Versus the tour guide is kind of like, all right, come on, guys, let me take you with you. Like you said, the Sherpa, let me show you around town. Let me be there with you, and we're going together. Versus, like I said, here's your trip tick, and
let me tell you the real story about this place and its history. Yes. No, I like that much more from a leadership perspective. That to me is more the leader than the hey, go do whatever. And by the way, make sure and slow down when you get to this place. It's a speed trap. What was one of the biggest leadership challenges that you've ever had to face? Well, one year I said yes to being the president of our local National Speakers Association chapter.
I'm sorry. I know how much work that can be.
Not as sorry as they were.
Oh no. Detail.
at the time I was finishing up my master's, and I was supposed to have been finished before I took on this position, but the university decided to postpone it. So I'm finishing up my master's during my presidential tenure. Some people that were going to support me decided that they were going to go off and do other things, nothing to do with our relationship. They just had something else they needed to do. And of course, the chapter was in a state of flux. Thank goodness the president-elect stepped up and saved the day. So we got through the year, but it was a tough year. It was a tough year.
I can understand. I was recently on the board for our local chapter. And like I said, sometimes, just like you said with the masters, life happens. And you realize if depending on your particular behavior style, drivers, stuff like that, sometimes a few of us can take on too much too fast. And when life happens, it's kind of like, okay, it's time to dial this back a little bit, you know. Right. And so same thing, a few things come up, and also, let's say the time commitment too. You know, sometimes you don't think it's going to be as much as a time commitment as it does. So that does face some challenges. So great that you had a president-elect that was able to kind of step up and.
Yeah. I mean, everything changed that I had in place. I thought this is going to be a lot easier with what I had in place and what was going on, but change happens.
Yes, it does. And well, it's funny because you end up just like, and that's a great example for a lot of leaders that do that are ambitious, that do take on too much too quick, and not really realize it or not trying to do it. But I've seen some that do really well. They're like, hey, ask for like a board spot. Fine, I can be on your board, but I can give you my 1 hour a month or whatever. And beyond that 1 hour a month, that's it. But at least they're honest enough to tell you. Sometimes it's not going to be anything, just a 1 hour a month, it's fine. And then kind of they sell you on it's not going to be bad, and this is huge commitment, right?
That's right.
Right. And so, I mean, it's a lot of different levels when you talk about that kind of stuff. But, and then, like you said, sometimes you get in and based on the circumstances that were in place, the conditions on the ground, so to speak, when I took the position,
right.
You know, then when things change, now it's different.
Everyone has to be realistic and really take a hard look and a realistic look at what they're trying to do in the future, you know, 6 months out, 12 months out, and see what is going to fit with that schedule and what is not. And you've got to prioritize because, you know, while some things might look great on your bio or resume, as it may be, shooting yourself in the foot, as you say, is not a good thing to do. And that doesn't look so great. That's just messy.
No. Yes, it is quite and painful. Yes. But the worst part, I mean, honestly, is if they ever went back and talked to somebody and they did a poor job, you know, it's tough it's humbling to say, hey, I said I was going to be able to do this, but I can't now. You know, that is a tough one. But you know what? Sometimes it's better to do that. Or first time I ever ran into this, I was doing a strategic plan for a chamber. And I was interviewing all the board members, and and one of the things the staff was really big on was really wanting to encourage the board members to get more involved in committees and taking on things and doing stuff, which was kind of part of the role. And I said, I got the one particular one, and she's like, no. I'm like, I hadn't seen it, just a blatant, that ain't happening. And I'm like, but when she explained to me just what we said, that her deal was, I told them when I started, she's like, I work on 100% commission. I eat what I kill. Okay. I can't spend inordinate amount of time. You've got my 100% dedicated expertise, attention, skill set, everything for that 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever a month that we're at the meeting. And then there's occasionally some special occasion stuff that we go to and attend. Hey, that's fine. But I can't commit to doing all the other stuff. And I told them ahead of time. That was the big thing. It's like, and that was fine with them. And I'm like, I can at least respect that because I've seen way too many people overcommit and say, oh, well, yeah, I'll do this and I'm going to be involved and I'm going to.
That's the transparency though, Dave.
That is the transparency. And I like that a lot. And it, like I said, it was brutal transparency at first. I was like, that's kind of harsh. And then the more I thought about it, no, that's actually probably the best thing that you could have ever done is versus same board, same everything, a guy that's all involved and all in it and whatever. Then all of a sudden he's just gone,
Right.
quit
Yeah.
everything. And he
I
just,
was
because
on-
it had just gotten way over his head, way too much, and just had to bail. And I'm like, I think if he'd have been that authentically transparent beforehand and said, I can only go up to here,
Right. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
wouldn't have got totally burnt out and he wouldn't have had to leave.
Yeah. I was on a board recently and they had, changed their direction and a lot of other things had changed. And I was just becoming like a bump on a log. And I realized that. I said, hey, it's better you give this seat to somebody else. Now, sometimes that takes courage, just like you said, you can't be dishonest with people and expect good results, regardless of the circumstances. So I just, I resigned from the board and we're still friends and all that good stuff. It was the changes that really didn't suit what I had gone in there for. So
completely understand. And like I said, especially when you were talking about the whole thing with your master's, like I said, you were certainly not expecting, you thinking that's going to be over beforehand, I'll have plenty of time. And when it's not, you're like, oh no, I would have never signed up for this if I'd have thought by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Who would think a school would do that though? I mean,
God only knows. Stranger things have happened, but schools can say, "Hey, don't show up for 2 years," and because there's the Black Plague rolled into town. I mean,
of course, they're out of business now too. So,
whoops, interesting. Yeah, no, it's tough. Like I said, even the last couple of years with everything with the COVID. I mean, you talk about having to transition, change, challenges, et cetera, et cetera. That's definitely been a
lot of hangover from that and will continue to be. There are still people that don't want to come back to work and managers are having to deal with that with individuals and they have to learn how to deal with it, find out the real reason they don't want to come back to work and help people get beyond that, or either have a policy or learn to work with it or change their attitude. Sometimes people just have the idea you need to be in the office, but sometimes you don't need to be in the office. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration, and it just got slammed in our face so quickly. We weren't expecting it. So, but now you need to take the time, because you have the time now, and sit down and formulate some conversation around this issue.
No, I think that a lot of employers need to be a lot more strategic on how they do things. And like I said, it's two pretty good examples. I have one, a friend of mine that works out in the Northern Virginia area. So it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, maybe an hour and a half away. Of course, during the pandemic, everything was remote, right, for most of the staff. And it was a big bullpen type, cubicle type of thing. Well, things were getting done and life was good and whatever. Well, the manager, she could not stand the fact that they weren't in the building. So the first time that she had the opportunity, spent tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm probably being extraordinarily conservative with the amount of money, took all the cubicles out, brought in all these new cubicles that were individual cubicles so they could keep them 3 feet away. They were now COVID-safe cubicles. I don't know. Maybe they had reverse osmosis filtration on them. I don't know. Charcoal filters above them. God only knows. All I know is
breathing in the building.
Right, no, yeah, you were prohibited to breathe in the building, right? But it was, however they ended up doing it, it ended up being tens and tens of thousands of dollars to bring in these new cubicles so they could justify bringing everybody back into the office.
Wow.
I'm like, man, you've got a bad case of micromanagement-itis if you've got to spend that kind of money just so you could see the people when you've been. And a lot of folks on the other end are like, I don't, like you said, I don't want to go back. I have a friend of mine who's same thing out here in the Winchester area, office in Fairfax, that are, hour and a half away or so. And she's in sales and her territory is out here. So it's like, why would I want to fight that DC, Northern Virginia traffic to go into an office when my sales territory is out here anyway? And I've been selling out here for the last 2 years. I'm like, and then you realize I get there, like, I don't like these people. Like, I don't want to be around them. And one thing that kind of leads into is a presentation I'd done, and we were actually doing like a workforce coalition type of meeting this morning with some chamber members in a different location. and I was sharing some Gallup data. And Gallup, from their State of the Workforce 2021, which is the latest one that they have, talked about the Great Resignation. And like, it wasn't a workplace, it wasn't a industry issue, a pay issue, or a skill issue. It was or a role issue. It was a workplace issue.
Interesting.
It's because people coming back, they're like, do I really want to go back and work for that crappy manager in a horrible culture and a bad environment? For what? And then if you look at it, if it's a two income household, especially with young kids, do I really want to pay, if I've got 2 kids, do I really want to pay the cost for childcare? What is my true net that I'm making with the hassle, with the headache, the commute, the childcare, the this, the that, and the other? What am I really netting to go back to a crappy environment with the boss I don't want to be around?
That's right. Is it worth that? No.
Is it really worth it? No. Guess what? I can take my graphic design skills and put them on Fiverr or Upwork or something. And for that little bit of net between what I'm paying in gasoline and commuting costs and childcare, daycare,
right?
For that little bit difference between that and my salary, I could make 3 times that on Upwork or Fiverr or on some kind of per gate, my own thing, and stay home.
Yeah.
And have more time. Like, why would I want to do that? So, I mean, and that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's not all of it, because when we were talking today, you could have the best workplace culture in the world. And if people apply and actually show up for the interview and actually accept the job, there's a lot of assumptions there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just say they do, and they don't even show up for the job. Right. It's like they're not even there long enough to know if you have a great workplace culture or not. So, I mean,
yeah,
you still got that. You still got that.
Right.
But you're right. There's a lot of people that just like, I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and some of it can be generational too, because we had a gentleman from our Small Business Development Center come in and did a lot of research on this, and come to find out, it was like, he was giving some example of his kid and his girlfriend. He was like, that the Gen Z generation said they don't spend money like we do. He's like, give you an example. He said, my son and his girlfriend, they go to travel most of the time. If we go to travel, where are we going to stay? Begins with an H, ends in hotel, right? So we're probably going to stay in a hotel. We're going to spend money to stay in a hotel. They're half the time they're like, hey, we're just taking the Subaru, we're going across country, and half the time we're probably just going to lay the seats down, roll up the sleeping bags, and we'll just hang out there, and so they just are not spending the money. So they're like, they don't need the money to spend the money, and for them it's more important to just
enjoy life.
Nice, I guess,
I guess.
It's easier to, although my $60,000 crappy comment of the day, ding, 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 okay, winner. My $60,000 crappy comment of the day is a lot easier to enjoy life when you can stay on your parents' health insurance until 26 and not be in college. Just throwing that out there.
Right. Just saying.
just saying, it does make it easier than, I get kicked off at 18 if I'm not a full-time student. I best go find a job.
Yeah.
That has insurance.
When I left home, you didn't go back. That was it. You sank or swam, None of that.
No. A few people I did know that ended up going back. It was more of those, they worked a lot of part-time. And the fire department worked a whole lot of part-time, and then basically had kids, and then basically they ended up getting divorced, and wife, husband, whoever took them for everything. And basically when they're taking 100% of your full-time paycheck in alimony, child support, whatever, at that point, you're kind of like, I probably need to, that's let me go back to mom and dad's at 30 something, not because I failed to thrive, because I need a place to kind of recoup and I just took a big smack in the face.
Right. I don't want to be on the street. That's for sure.
I don't want to be on the street. So I won't say the couch or the basement is better than the street, but some circumstances, let's just say, are different than others. But it was that extreme case, not I just really like it down here, and the video games are great, and the laundry service still works. So I'm
I got close, but I made it.
Yes. Well, I think haven't we all? And I want to ask you, Diane, what do you think is the best way for leaders to improve their leadership skills?
Mm. When somebody inherits a team, and I don't care if they've been on the team and they've suddenly become the leader, they need to talk to their team as a unit, but they also need to talk to every individual member of that team. They need to learn the history of the team. They need to the first words out of their mouth when they talk to the team as a unit is, I don't have all the answers. I'm going to rely on you for some. I'm going to help you with the things that you might not understand, but together we'll have each other's backs. When they talk to the individual people, they need to understand that person's goals, their talents, their behavioral styles, their communication styles, because you cannot lead people if you don't understand people. And that is something that every leader needs to do.
Somebody needs to write that down. You cannot lead people if you don't understand people, right? That is, yeah, absolutely. I laugh. I'm like, to tell them as a team, like, I don't have all the answers. And I'm like, you mean it's not like divine right of kings? I mean, you're not imparted by all wisdom from God just because you got a new title on the organizational chart?
Doesn't work that way.
Oh, I got a new title and a 5% raise, and now
I know everything.
Now I work 30 hours a week more than I did before, and most of that for free, and and now I know everything.
Right.
Yeah, not so much, huh?
Yeah, right. Not so much is right. Yes. When you do these things, you can work better as a unit. And helping team members build their careers helps you build a better team, because they're more engaged, they get what they want, the organization gets a better employee. It's a win-win situation. Mm-hmm. If an organization does not have a career path, I think they're making a big mistake.
It's funny you mentioned that, because some of the research I did for, like I said, the presentation I was telling you about, where I pulled the Gallup information for the Great Resignation, there was some other statistical data that came through that talked about internal mobility in organizations. Mm-hmm. We talked about retention. I didn't realize it was this drastic. Right? You kind of anecdotally know, but until you see some data, you're like, interesting. Most organizations that they had studied that had low internal mobility, the average tenure was about 2.9 years. Okay. Mm. All right, whatever, respectable. I'll get about 3 years out, and then they go do separate ways. But for organizations that had high internal mobility, and that doesn't mean like upward necessarily. That's I can lateral wherever and have some mobility in the organization. The average tenure was 5.4 years.
Exactly.
So we're talking about almost double, just because you can not necessarily have a career path up, but you have ways to move around the organization to try different things and are mobile. That's significant when it comes to turnover.
Right. That career path, Dave, goes back to what you were talking about earlier about giving people the opportunity to learn things and try them out. Mm-hmm. That is part of that process. They get to job shadow, they network. All of those things make a big, big difference in a person's career path and the way they serve the organization.
Well, and I think if you stay in an organization, some of it could be organizational led and driven, and some could be personal driven.
Absolutely.
But I'll give you a perfect example of something that typically happens in a, let's just say, not known for being the most progressive organizations in the world, right? So I've come, like I say, come from the fire service. They talk about 200 years of tradition, totally unimpeded by progress, right? And so that's kind of the motto, right? Okay. And so it's just like, can't seem to figure this out. But what they do is, say you come up, in the ranks, and you be, maybe from a firefighter, master firefighter, whatever, lieutenant, captain, and become a battalion chief. So now you're putting out the fire by driving around in a Suburban and shouting stuff on a radio, right? I mean, so it's a pretty unique skill, putting out a fire with the radio, right, instead of water, right? But work with me, but you're still on the 24-hour shifts, you're in the command vehicles and stuff like that. But at some point, if you want to break that barrier and maybe go to a deputy chief or a chief of a department, you've got the operational stuff down. But most of the time, they'll take those people and they'll say, okay, now we're going to rotate you. You're going to do 2 years in training. You're going to do 2 years in fire prevention. You're going to do 2 years in admin. And they start rotating them around to the different positions. And when they do, and a lot of times it's like, I don't want to, like, we don't care what you want, right? We're just telling you, you're going to rotate. Right. If you want to keep that paycheck coming in that retirement, adding years to the pension, you probably are going to take the reassignment we're going to give you, right?
Right.
But what it does is it allows them, so they can touch all the different parts of the organization and get a good solid understanding of it. So when they do go up to assistant chief or deputy chief or something like that, or eventually the chief somewhere, it's not just I'm good at the operational end of it, but I don't know much about any of the other parts of the organization. So taking that same kind of model, if you can, as either an organization, have people where they can do rotate around, and maybe that is part of the career path. Hey,
sure.
couple years over here, a couple years over here, a couple years over here, or as an ambitious, I want to move up in the organization. I'm really good at what I'm doing, maybe marketing or whatever. Maybe I need to get into operations a little bit. Maybe I need to get into research. Maybe I need to get into sales and hit some of these other ones. So one, it's different and it's a challenge and you learn new skills, but it also makes you a little bit more well-rounded. So maybe that does enhance your ability to move up later down the line.
Right. And understanding other people's jobs is a real plus, because then you can better do strategy that way. So that's really important.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, whether it's, and having the ability of an organization for people to say, yes, you can move from this department to that department is kind of the high internal mobility that they were talking about, and people will stay longer. And we talk about how turnover is extraordinarily expensive. The bad part about it is you're never going to have a CFO. You're never going to have one of your finance or your CPAs have that on a line item on your P&L statement or your balance sheet. Cost of turnover, cost of disengagement. It's not on there. It's a cost. When people leave and walk out the door, it's expensive. But that cost is not part of GAAP accounting measures, right? And it's not something you're going to get as a leader on a P&L. Like, oh my God, look at how much our line item for turnover is this year. Good Lord, we need to do something.
But it's got to be in there. It's got to be in there because it just eats your bottom line alive.
Oh, it's not part of the GAAP accounting procedures. It's not something that you're going to get in a standard financial report, but it's a real hard cost. And so sometimes people hear training and development, organizational development, HR, whatever. A lot of people think very driven, very task oriented. People thinking warm and fuzzy. Like, we're not paying for warm and fuzzy. What they don't realize is there's a hard cost that comes with warm and fuzzy, right?
That's right. Exactly.
When you talk about employee engagement, there's way too much hard data, scientific data correlating the employee engagement to productivity.
Right. The other thing is that employees need to understand that they really do need to develop themselves, because a job is only worth so much to an organization. You're not going to pay an admin $125,000 a year simply because she's been there 25 years. I'm sorry.
No.
So it's up to the employee to take some responsibility and accountability for developing their own career as well. Just as you said a while ago, it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. Because gone are most of the days. And if they are still around, it's probably in more of those military, civil service type public safety, where it's very few jobs that, okay, well, you get a step raise every year, and then we may or may not do a cost of living adjustment, but I can look 20 years out and here's my path going forward, right? I'm in civil service and I'm starting as a GS8 and I'm going to be, I do this and this in a couple of years. I'll be all these steps, GS8, step 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then I can go to a 9 or a 10 and I can start moving up the ladder that way. Well, that doesn't happen in a lot of places, and you're lucky just to get the cost of living,
right?
And that and your performance bonus if you're really good at what you're doing. But you're right, just because you're there 20 years,
right?
And there's also a flip side of that coin, and that I talk about when I talk about generational differences in the workplace. I will say there is something to be said when you finally hit that point in your career, when the new people coming in that are, let's just say, running their mouth, talking trash, whatever, they know it all. They've been there for, I call them a 220. I'll explain what a 220 is in a second, but I call them a 220, right? But you realize when the new people coming in and you think to yourself, I've been doing X, whatever X is at your company. I've been doing X longer than you have been physically on God's green earth. So if you're 21 years old and I've been doing this for 25 years, or you're 21 years old or 23 years old and I've been doing this for 30 years, or so on and so forth, you get an example. That ends up being a stark realization. You're like, and not that you want to throw that card down every once in a while, but it is something you're like, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive.
Right.
But On the other end of it, for the, say, the 25-year-old that is sharp and trying to bring new ideas, do you truly have 30 years of experience, or do you have 1 year of experience that you've rinsed and repeated 29 additional times?
And didn't learn anything new in the process, right?
My point, I haven't developed my skills, I haven't got any better. I got 1 good solid year of experience and I've just rinsed and repeat 29 additional times.
I still don't know how to send an email, but you know.
But I can run, I can pull this lever on this production line like a champ. It's something to think about.
Yes, it is.
It really is. So, I mean, that's one of those things that, you know, encouraging people to develop skills. But I laugh because one of the things that when you look at from an HR and a training and development standpoint, I would like to get your thoughts on this. I always talk to people about mentorship programs. And people thinking, okay, I'm going to take my experienced person, put it with my new person. And okay, yes. And a reverse mentor program. And what I say is you've got the folks that are your 220s, right? And this is the negative connotation, not the positive I'm getting ready to talk about. I call somebody a 220 if they've been there 2 days, 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 years, act like they've been there for 20. Right? They get that old salty, jaded, like a this place. You know, it's like, look, the person's been here for 20 years, old, salty, and jaded, probably for a good reason that doesn't apply to you, right? Okay, you haven't been through some of the trials, tribulations, pooped upon, whatever you want to call it, like that maybe they have in the last 20 years, right?
Exactly.
And you don't have the experience level to kind of, you know, support the bravado that you're coming to the table with. And I get it. They see the people that have been there 20, 25 years. Mm-hmm. They see the respect they get in the workplace because they've been there that long. And I understand that you would want that and want to strive for that type of thing. Yeah. And so it's easy to kind of act like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
But your attitude, your mouth, your hind parts, whatever, are writing checks that your skill level cannot cash.
That's right.
And your experience level cannot cash, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, but you can take some of that ambition, and what I call a reverse mentor program. You take people that are great with technology, right? These kids coming out, the young people coming in, they're really, really, really good with technology. And same thing, you pair them with somebody who's, you know, maybe not as good with technology, who's been there for a while. They share their experience about, hey, here's where the bodies are buried, right? Here's where the skeletons are in the closet, right? But on the other hand, you know, they're like, hey, look, that, you know, there's a quicker way to do that, right? And they can just honestly even stand there and just watch them do some of their tech work and realize, you know, you could do this and this would make it easier. I mean, they can help them with the technology end of it.
Absolutely.
And so they're really contributing and doing something that they know much better than the person that they're helping who's been there longer, and then vice versa. They kind of get that reciprocal. So it's a nice positive way to have somebody who's young be able to feel like that they're able to contribute to people that have been there a long time, something that is really helpful for them.
Yeah, it's everybody wins when you do that. And I see companies now more and more are hiring coaches. They have internal coaches and external coaches, and of course, there's a coach on every corner. But everybody needs help. Coaches have coaches. So the mentoring, the coaching, whatever works for an individual, and whether they work better with an internal coach or an external coach, it needs to be a good fit. So I encourage companies to continue working on that and building that into their organization and have a culture of coaching.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things that sometimes the external works better than the internal because, oh, I know the internal one. Do I really want to air my dirty laundry to somebody who's quote unquote in HR, you know, who you know, go down that road, right? But
yeah, it can be
versus I'm talking to somebody from the outside that I don't know them necessarily, but I mean, you build the relationship as you go through that process, but it's not somebody who's, you know, you have that particular concern about, or, you know, it's just something that's different talking to somebody from the outside. And sometimes it's better talking to somebody from the inside because they know the dynamics of the organization. Sure. When you make an innuendo or an insinuation or something like that, they get the comment that you don't have to fill them in on the details.
Yeah,
but
maybe the perfect fit is an internal mentor and an external coach. How's that?
Not a bad way to go because they are different things. Yes, absolutely. And I really do think, depending on how you look at it, just a good way to a good analogy, right? If you could just take it from it doesn't have to be religious, but I'm going to use a religious analogy. You know, everyone are like, okay, everybody should, you know, find a Paul and look for a Peter. You know, it's like, or I mean, look for a Timothy, right? I look for someone who's going to mentor me, right? You always look for a mentor, no matter how long you've been doing it. Somebody's always been doing it longer, always got a better skill set. So can I find somebody who can mentor me, and also who can I pass the information down to? You mentioned Maxwell before. It's kind of like he talks about being a river, not a reservoir. Right. I've got you coming in because I'm being mentored by people that have a lot more skills and experience than I do. And I'm also passing that on to somebody else. And so it keeps the flow of information fresh versus I got what I got. And I just kind of hoard it all myself. And I might be taking in, but if I'm not giving to anybody, I'm overflowing, but I'm not being able to do anything with it. If I'm constantly giving and I'm not getting, then your well's going to run dry pretty quick.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you're not giving, and you're just a stagnant algae-filled pool of man, whatever.
That's right.
And none of it's good. None of that is good. No. None of that is good. So in the last minute or so, tell our listeners how they can get connected with you.
They can call me at 404-320-7834. They can go to my website at performstrat.com, or they can email me at Diane@DianeBogino.com.
That sounds great. Well, I tell you what, I'm tickled to have you on the program, and we will be back next time with Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave here on KLDR Online Leadership Development Radio. And I would absolutely encourage everybody to reach out to Diane, check out some of her services. And one more time, Diane, before we go, what was the website so they can go and see, you know, all the goodness of, you know, the Bogino empire?
They can go to performstrat.com. It's short for Performance Strategies. And, you know, Dave, I also have a YouTube channel called Build a Better Career. So if people want to go on there and get career tips, they can do that. Also, organizations can call me for a webinar on demand on strategic thinking.
Very nice. It's always a good thing to kind of try before you buy. A little introduction introduction to the performance strategist. So thanks again, Diane, and we will talk soon. Take care. We'll see you next time on Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave here on KLDR Online Leadership Development Radio.